Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff and today we're going to be talking about the fantasy football Week 2 NFL preseason standouts. Last week this time we talked about the Week 1 preseason standouts, all the implications that were developing, all of the injuries, all of the rumors going around. And we basically just covered everything when it came to the first week of the preseason so that you, the viewer, can get ready for your drafts, get ready for the start of the regular season, and be prepared. So, without further ado, before we get into this next video, again, we're going to be talking about running backs by committee, wide receiver usage, tight ends, quarterback competitions, a little bit of defense here and there, but not too much. And that's pretty much it. If you're here to listen and hear about specific players who played in the fourth quarter who might barely make the squad, that's not really what we're going to be talking about. We're generally talking about all the implications for the start of the regular season, who you should be drafting, who you should be targeting, who is being slept on and has had pretty good production so far in the preseason. And if you can, right now, like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content and additional things. If you have any question, just go ahead and type it down there. I will absolutely answer any question you have. Anyway, let's get right into it, shall we? Everybody, how's it going? So, right away, right? We're talking about Week 2's standouts. And on the screen, we have James White. Okay, so why is James White the number one person I'm going to be talking about? Well, the Patriots played the Eagles. It was a Super Bowl 52 rematch. But during the preseason, right? Wentz wasn't there. Alshon Jeffrey wasn't playing. No big deal. That's common, especially with both of them fighting injury as we speak, trying to come back. But James White, he was the highlight of this game, plain and simple. James White came in with Rex Burkhead ailing from a knee injury and Sony Michel also having a knee injury. I mean, it was pretty much set that James White was going to be able to produce. He produced 92 yards total with 6 receptions and a touchdown, and he looked like a vital part of the Patriots offense with Tom Brady taking majority of the entire first quarter and having 2 scoring drives. The Patriots offense looked like a well-oiled machine. James White, as of right now, prior to the injury to Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel, he was generally just seen and looked at as a third down back in PPR leagues that could be your flex position. As of right now, he has way more value than that, right? Obviously, it all depends on whether Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel come back healthy, but if they're they have a setback here and there. Maybe one of them gets an MRI and says, you're out for the season. James White's value is skyrocketing high, right? As of right now, I think James White's ADP, average draft position, is going to continue to rise throughout the next couple weeks, depending on what we hear about Rex Burkhead especially. But I think just off of that performance, 92 yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown with Tom Brady, I mean, that already sets up something to look for, right? There were a lot of plays, a lot of screen passes, just created for James White so that he could be successful within this offense. So if they already have that in the playbook like they've had in the last couple of years and they're ready to use it, then he's got great value. Okay, other than that, right, obviously Brady under center. I've got something in my throat. Give me a second. Okay, hopefully that's better. Okay, so obviously Tom Brady under center. It looked good, right? He came down, he had 2 scoring drives, 1 pass to Chris Hogan, which was a successful drive. And then, he came back and threw a touchdown to James White. Another thing to look forward to, right? The starting Patriots offense. Yes, there was no Gronkowski, no big deal. But it was Brady, it was James White as a starting running back. You had Hogan, you had Cordell Patterson, and you had Julian Edelman as the 3 starting receivers. The way it looked, especially with Cordell Patterson eventually catching a touchdown later in the game, he looked like a vital part of that offense. A lot of screen plays went to him. He's got great speed. He's always been a kick return guy, and he's a big body. He's a big frame. So if Tom Brady can put the ball in the right place, Cordell Patterson is extremely talented. And probably throughout his entire career, he's been underutilized, right, at the wide receiver position. Everyone's seemed to think, he's only a special teams returner, and that's the extent of his talent. I think he's better than that. He was drafted by the Vikings many years back to be better than that, and I think he might be able to utilize all of his potential this coming season with the Patriots, considering, he's that number 3 wide receiver as of right now with the starting offense. Okay, that's just to keep that in mind. As I said prior, the Eagles did not have Carson Wentz playing, and also they did not have Alshon Jeffrey out on the field. Again, both of them ACL with Carson Wentz, and there's been a lot of rumors that Alshon Jeffrey, I even talked about this last week, that Alshon Jeffrey might end up being on the physically unable to perform list, the PUP list, which would hold him out until week 6. If that's the case, again, look for Ertz to get more production. Look for Corey Clement out of the backfield to get more production. Nelson Aguilar, Mike Wallace, those kind of guys will obviously all benefit from the absence of an Alshon Jeffrey, who is a number 1 wide receiver within that offense and had over 90 targets last season. So other than that, J.H.I., again, he's going to be that number 1 running back. It stood true this week. The offensive line had a little bit of struggles. The Patriots really wanted to get some revenge, so they came out. They were firing on all cylinders to make sure that they got this win. Right? They needed to prove to themselves that they were better than the first team defense of that first team offense and defense of that Eagles roster. Right? It wasn't really. Nick Foles was there. Nick Foles got hurt. They just had to get a couple shots in on him. Right? But other than that, J.H.I., he looks like he's going to be that first team RB for the Eagles. That's what they traded for him for, But here's the thing, I've always, especially this past offseason, I've kind of been hesitant on the J.J. train. I've thought maybe there's a potential for him to be the RB1, but then there's so many running backs with Clement, Smallwood, and Sproles in that backfield. But as of right now, it shows that he's going to be the starting running back. So anyway, that was basically the recap of the Super Bowl 52 rematch. Let's move on to the next game, where we're going to be talking about the Jets versus the Washington Redskins, right? So, as you can see on the screen, we got Teddy Bridgewater. This last offseason, Teddy Bridgewater was acquired by the Jets. He was a Minnesota Viking for his entire career. Back in 2015, he had torn his ACL, missed the entire 2016 season from it, and ended up also missing majority of the 2017 season as Sam Bradford got injured. Teddy Bridgewater came back, but Case Keenum was already slotted in as that QB1 for the Vikings, and they weren't going to change it because the mojo was there. They were going to make the playoffs, and they ended up getting a playoff win, miraculously. So what did I see from this Jets game, right? Teddy Bridgewater looked good. Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold both played. Josh McCown, on the other hand, did not play. Earlier this past offseason, I thought, Josh McCown is most likely going to be the starter, but with the way that these young guys have been playing, Darnold and Bridgewater, it's kind of a confusing quarterback competition as of right now. Bridgewater obviously has more experience under his belt. Obviously not as much as Josh McCown, the traveling journeyman who has been on almost 8 teams probably throughout his entire career, playing almost 13 seasons. He's obviously doesn't have as much experience as Josh McCown, but he definitely has more experience than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold came out, looked pretty good, came down the field. He threw an interception, which, he's still young. It's a preseason game. He's going to learn from it, right? Teddy Bridgewater came down, had a good couple drives, had a touchdown, one of them. Overall, what do I see? I think it's still a coin toss. I think both of these guys are going to be playing next week to determine who's going to win this job. Obviously, we don't see what's happening in training camp. We don't know who has a better grasp of the playbook. We don't understand, the intricate things depending on, how this is going to go. But from what I can tell, I think eventually Sam Darnold is going to be that starting quarterback. I prefer it be, for fantasy purposes, Teddy Bridgewater at least. But, it'll most likely end up being Sam Darnold so that they can begin to start their rebuild and try to get wins with this young quarterback, which he's gonna struggle. He's not gonna be perfect this coming season, but I honestly I'd prefer to see Teddy Bridgewater out there. Other than that, Isaiah Crowell did not play, still suffering from that concussion he got last week. quick stat I wanted to read. Bilal Powell, I think, is going to be the starting running back of the Jets, right? Yes, Isaiah Crowell is going to come back, but I just want to read a stat about Bilal Powell. In the past 2 seasons, okay, 2016 and 2017, Bilal Powell has totaled for 1,494 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 81 receptions for 558 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Overall, he averages about 750 rushing yards, averages about, give or take, 250 receiving yards. So he's about almost a 1,000-yard total offense running back, right? His touchdowns, he had 10 in the last 2 years. It's 5, right? So if you get a guy like Bilal Powell, that he's being drafted so low, right? You can get a 1,000-yard running back, right? Who also is going to catch the ball out of the backfield, especially if they start Sam Darnold, right? He's going to need a little bit of help to just toss a dink and dunk, after he looks, first 2 reads, doesn't see anything, boom, Bilal Powell's open through the flat, right? If you can go draft Bilal Powell at his low value that he's going at right now, he's a 1,000-yard kind of guy, maybe gets you 5 touchdowns, which is probably, that's been his average, right? Gets you 5 touchdowns. You're set. That is a guy that I would love to have on my bench. He's going to obviously never start for me unless he's in a good matchup. And at that point, I love Bilal Powell this coming season. I have him in a couple leagues. He looks good. The only highlight for the Redskins, okay, now that we're done with the Jets, the only highlight I saw from the Redskins, Samaje Perine came in, ran for 30 yards. Okay, big whoops, it was a broken play, so be it, okay? Capri Bibbs, okay, who is a running back for this team. Chris Thompson has not played yet. And the way I see it, Capri Bibbs, he had a day. He had about 7 receptions. If I'm not mistaken, he had about 80 total yards of offense. He looked good, right? He was the receiving back for this offense. If Chris Thompson has any setbacks, it's going to be Capri Bibbs, right? But other than that, the Redskins have brought in Orleans Darkwa. They brought in Adrian Peterson. They've brought in a lot of talent this week, Monday, the 20th of August, to just see if any of them mesh, right? Adrian Peterson's coming. If Adrian Peterson comes in, I could definitely see him being the lead back of this offense, right? He's running, on fumes as of right now. Last season with the New Orleans Saints, not being the number 1 option out of the backfield, especially with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara there, he wasn't satisfied. They traded him over to the Cardinals, and, there wasn't really much competition. David Johnson was out for the rest of the season due to his wrist injury. He came in. He had a couple really good games. He had 140 rushing yards in a game. This man is old now. He's in his mid-30s, and he is still plowing through. One of the best running backs in NFL history, to be honest. So if he gets signed to the Redskins team, there's always potential for him to have really good fantasy value. So just keep an eye on that, all right? So what are we going to talk about next, right? Okay, let's see here. The narrative for this game, right? This might have been the highest scoring preseason game I've ever seen. They scored a total of 85 points, okay? The Packers themselves had 51 points. 85 total points in a preseason game. Defense was not showing up today, okay? Couple of the standouts. James Conner out of the University of Pittsburgh. He was drafted last season, brought in as the backup to Le'Veon Bell. James Conner did not get many reps at all last season. I think he had like 4 yards rushing the entire year. Didn't have any receptions, just 4 yards rushing the entire year, James Conner, okay? And that was probably in week 1 when Le'Veon Bell was trying to get acclimated back into the football speed, the football condition. So James Conner looked good. He scored a touchdown, had about 50 rushing yards. He looked agile. He looked like he could produce, right? But then again, if you're thinking, maybe Le'Veon Bell's going to lose value, I don't see that at all. James Conner is not going to be used this season. Le'Veon Bell, this might be his last year in Pittsburgh, right? And if that's so, they might want to run him to the ground, right? Give him 400 touches like they usually do. Last year, he had 320 rushing yards, He had 320 rushing attempts, right? He had 80 receptions. He had 400 touches on the year. They might even try to yak that up more. There was a game where he had 30 touches. against the Ravens last season, right? He ran the ball 30 times. I mean, they might try to do that again. So James Conner, I don't really see much value, but he's a handcuff. So that's all I can see from him. James Washington, who you see on the screen right now, okay, is a rookie drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? This guy, I talked about him in my rookie wide receivers and tight ends video a couple weeks back. He's going to be a stud, right? He's being brought into an offense who, just has a bunch of weapons that literally cannot be contained. You have Antonio Brown, you have Le'Veon Bell, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, and you have Ben Roethlisberger, right? You add a guy like James Washington, who has been playing the outside receiver spot, and Juju's been playing the slot, which he's most comfortable in. I see James Washington he's going to be, yes, the fourth wide receiver option for this offense, but there are going to be weeks where he is a feature and he is going to score fantasy points. So in your if you're in a redraft league, in the later rounds, he is a great option to just snag on your bench, because if he starts to do well, that's probably going to take away from Juju Smith-Schuster. I see Le'Veon Bell getting his production. I see Antonio Brown getting his. Juju Smith might get a little bit of a dip in production because James Washington, he's coming to take some reps here and there, right? He had 5 receptions for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. This, where he jumped over a guy's back, I mean, he lifted, and this corner was just helpless. The safety was helpless. I don't know. I feel bad for this guy. Anyway, other than that, for the Packers, there was no Aaron Rodgers, and there wasn't really any, Devontae Adams or anything. Rightfully so. You don't really need to play them. They have nothing to prove. But Jamal Williams went down with an ankle injury. To what extent? I think it's a minor ankle injury, but if that seems to have a setback in the next couple weeks, Ty Montgomery owners, get ready, right? Because week 1 is approaching, and Aaron Jones is suspended, and if your good old Jamal Williams ends up getting hurt and not being able to play week 1, then Montgomery's getting majority of the touches out of that backfield. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see what we're talking about next. All right, Patrick Mahomes, right? We had the Chiefs versus the Falcons, right? The narrative here, right, that I want to paint, right, is please don't be fooled by Austin Hooper, and please draft top 5 tight ends like Travis Kelce. Now let me go into detail, right? So obviously, let's talk about Patrick Mahomes real quick. Last week I talked about him in our preseason week 1 standouts video. I saw him struggling. I saw him make mistakes like a rookie would. He was stepping up in the pocket. His footwork was rough, right? He was stepping into pressure at times and getting sacked. There were a lot of mistakes, right? He learned from that. He came back, and he showed us why the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him in the first round of the 2017 draft. He came in, he threw a bomb to Tyreek Hill, who, that's going to be his number 1 target, right? Mahomes has a cannon for an arm. That's what they've been saying for years, right? Mahomes has got a cannon. He showed it, right? He's going to be able to throw the ball deep. He's going to feed Tyreek Hill, who in my opinion is going to be the biggest benefactor of the Patrick Mahomes era, right? Yes, there is Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, but of all those 3, Kareem Hunt's going to get his carries, right? But the targets are going to majority, in my opinion, go to Tyreek Hill, at least the big plays, and then it's going to be Travis Kelce and then Kareem Hunt, right? Now, what I was saying before, don't trust in guys like Austin Hooper, right? So for the Falcons, the Falcons really, I don't know. Last week they didn't play anybody. They came back this week with Matt Ryan, Mohamed Sanu, Tevin Coleman, and Austin Hooper, right? That was the extent of their offensive weapons, and Calvin Ridley, right? They had their offensive line, but no Julio, no Devontae Freeman, right? Devontae Freeman these last couple of years, 1 too many concussions. They can't afford him to get another concussion. So if you are a Devontae Freeman owner, just be careful. Just be careful. I know the organization is trying to protect your asset, but just be careful, because as soon as he gets just a little bit of a concussion scare, they're pulling him out, and they're going to go through protocol, and he's probably not going to pass. So Tevin Coleman owners, be ready. Obviously, as I said, Julio didn't play also. Until they give him, more of a new contract, I don't think he'll ever play in the preseason ever again. He doesn't really have to. He's Julio Jones, to be honest. Calvin Ridley looked good within the offense. Now, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper had, 2 receptions, 33 yards, and a touchdown. 2 plays in which he looked pretty decent, right? The second play was for the touchdown was designed for him. You might be thinking, well, maybe this is Austin Hooper's year. Maybe he has the potential to be a close tight end one. No, guys, don't fool yourselves. Please don't make that mistake. Please don't. His stats last year were inflated. He had a reception in week 2 where he had an 88-yard touchdown. That's just inflation right there, right? Everybody has big plays, but Austin Hooper, he's not as talented as people think. They might think, oh man, he's young, he's talented. No. I would much rather have Travis Kelce and pay the price of a 3rd round, 4th round selection of Travis Kelce rather than go and get Hooper and hope. Because all you're doing with an Austin Hooper is hoping he gets 6 points. You're pleading, you're praying to whatever God you believe in that he gets 6 points. And I don't want to work like that on a weekly basis. I don't want to hope that he gets that. I want consistency within my lineup. And I don't see that with Austin Hooper. So just putting it out there. Do not go for Hoopers. Go for Kelce's, okay? So the next game, right? The Lions versus the Giants, okay? This is the rookie running back conversation as of right now, right? It's Saquon Barkley, who didn't play in this game because he's ailing from a quad injury. It is what it is. I don't think he needs to play again. He'll probably try to dress next week and get a couple reps with the first team offense, because I think the 3rd week of preseason, right, is usually when teams start to get their entire lineup in. They try to get one full drive with their entire starting lineup so that they can wipe off the cobwebs and get set, right? Other than that, the Giants, they didn't have Eli. Odell's not going to play. And no Evan Ingram, right? So the Giants was just a no-show. I really had no interest in really paying attention to them during the game. But I had to, there was something that popped out to me, right? As you see on the screen, we have Theo Riddick, right? I've talked about this Lions backfield a lot, and it scares me, right? They have Kieran Johnson, who is the rookie out of Auburn, who a lot of people, especially me from last week, we thought, he's looking great. And he has the potential to be the starting running back for this team, right? But they also have guys like LeGarrette Blount. They have Amir Abdullah. They have, as you can see on the screen, Theo Riddick. This past game, they used everyone, and they were all efficient, right? Theo Riddick, as a 3rd down back, played a great game, right? LeGarrette Blount had a couple good plows up the middle, and that's what he does, right? That's his job. He's going to be the goal line back, I think, right? Amir Abdullah, I think, should be cut because I don't think he's very good at all. But, they might use him, which then again, it's going to bring down the value of Kieran Johnson, who I think is extremely talented. He can pass block, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can run the ball like an RB1. But is he going to be given the reins, the keys to the backfield, to the keys of the kingdom? I don't think so. I think Matt Patricia, coming from the New England Patriots scheme, is going to kind of take that Bill Belichick mindset, that Josh McDaniels mindset, and have 4 running backs. 5 running backs. Even Zach Zenner is within this team, right? Have 5 running backs and use them the way you want, right? Because you can never have too many running backs because always someone's going to get hurt. So I think that's what they're going to go and end up doing. I think Theo Riddick might be have the most value this coming season out of all the running backs because of his potential in PPR, half-point PPR, to have 6 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown in a week, and boom, he fixes your flex position, gets you that good 13 points, boom, you're done. Anyway, let's move on to the next game where we're going to be talking about, obviously, the Bills versus the Browns. Okay, so who is on the screen? This is Josh Allen. Man, this is the rookie quarterback conversation now, right? Josh Allen on the screen. So the Bills, right? I talked about, man, I'm wearing the Browns colors right now. Here we go. Anyway, Josh Allen. I talked about the Bills quarterback situation last week, right? And I was saying that it's kind of a mess, right? You don't know whether Nathan Peterman, A.J. McCarron, or Josh Allen's going to be that week 1 starter. But, I guess it just figured itself out. AJ McCarron broke his collarbone during the game. Bada boom, he's done. Right? I don't see him. I didn't really even see him being the starting quarterback for this team. I didn't think he was going to win the job. Right? As soon as he came in and they drafted a quarterback, right there, it was already kind of, I don't think they trusted him either. And neither did the Bengals. The Bengals never really gave him an opportunity, even though Andy Dalton was bad these last couple seasons. But then again, it's fixed itself. It's settled itself. Now it's a one-on-one competition between Nathan Peterman and Josh Allen, who both look good. Let's be honest. In preseason, they've looked good within their respective, attempts and drives throughout the game. The way I see it, they might just give Nathan Peterman, it's pretty much the same thing with Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold, right? I think Teddy Bridgewater, obviously, without a doubt, has more experience, right? He's been a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's taken his team to the playoffs before. He's a good game manager who can produce, right? The way I see it, I think they might start with Nathan Peterman this year, just like I'm hoping the Jets start with Teddy Bridgewater. And if they start losing the first couple weeks, boom, they'll switch it out. They'll put in their starting rookie quarterbacks and start getting them reps so that they can start the rebuild and get them more experience. Other than that, within the Bills, I didn't really see anything. There's no Calvin. LaShawn McCoy got a couple reps here and there. No big deal. He'll probably be the most valuable asset, a part of this team. But then again, depending on who starts at quarterback, Nathan Peterman, Josh Allen, I think they're both within the same level of experience NFL-wise. Nathan Peterman came in through a bunch of picks. I think they're similar in experience, they're similarly inexperienced. How about that, right? And I think that there's a potential that, Josh Allen might end up just being the better quarterback. We'll just have to wait and see. But then again, if you don't play in a super flex, you don't really want to draft him, right? The only time you'll ever draft him is if you're extremely desperate. You might as well just go get a guy like Joe Flacco later in your rounds, or Ryan Tannehill, who has proved himself, who we're going to be talking about later in this video. For the Browns, Carlos Hyde had a pretty good game. You know what? To be honest, all the running backs for the Browns had a really good game. They were hyper efficient, right? Carlos Hyde came in, blew the doors off. Nick Chubb came in, coming off that really bad week 1 performance where he had like 13 rushes for 11 yards. The offensive line didn't help him much, right? It was the second team offensive line, third team offensive line. Didn't really help him. They came in, they blew the doors down. The Bills' defense looked awful, right? Even Duke Johnson came in and he got his shots in, right? This three-headed monster of a backfield, yes, it's going to be a running back by committee, but again, Duke Johnson's going to have his value in PPR, and I think Carlos Hyde is, he's coming off of one of his best seasons as a pro, Carlos Hyde. He's going to be that running back 1 for this team. But the question is, how much is he going to have to share with Nick Chubb on the goal line and in first and second down options? So other than that, we just got to keep an eye out for that. Okay, so let's try to get through this. As I was saying, the Dolphins, right? But who's on the screen? Christian McCaffrey. Literally what I've written down, okay? Christian McCaffrey equals stud. That is the narrative here. If you get anything from watching this game, right, between the Panthers and the Dolphins, it is that Christian McCaffrey's is an absolute stud, right? Without a doubt in my mind, he's going to be an RB1 this season, right? At the value he's going at as of right now, at the 13 range, 13-14 running back range, God, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. That's where I want him to be. That's exactly where I want him to be. Because if I have the first overall pick, right, and it go, actually, no, there's no way to go and come back and Christian McCaffrey be that, unless you play in a super flex like I do. But if you're playing in a regular, one quarterback situation, if you're in the mid-round pick, how about that? And you take like Antonio Brown, like at the sixth pick. You take Antonio Brown and comes back, Christian McCaffrey's there, you win the league. I'm telling you right now. McCaffrey is going to be an animal this coming season, okay? So other than that, for the Panthers, I think Cam Newton's going to be a top 5 quarterback this year, right? He was these last couple seasons, but even more this year. He might inch up into that number 2 spot. Now, let me throw some names at you, right? Having Christian McCaffrey and CJ Anderson, right? In my opinion, that's the most talented backfield he's had in years, right? In years. D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, they were old at the time, right? They were on their last legs. Christian McCaffrey and CJ Anderson, extremely talented backfield. At the wide receiver position, right? Devin Funchess, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Torrey Smith, right? You have talent there, up and down the board. And then you have Greg Olsen coming back. I'm telling you, Cam Newton is going to have a great year this year. The Panthers are going to have a great year this year, okay? Other than that, who did we see from the Dolphins? We saw Kenyon Drake come out, look great. He looked great, plain and simple, right? Kenyon Drake is going to be the number one running back for this team. All things are pointing towards that. I'm just a little afraid of the potential of Damian Williams or Frank Gore, Langford coming out of nowhere, taking the reps, but I don't think it'll happen. Ryan Tannehill looked efficient as heck, right? 14 for 17, 115 passing yards. That's the way that Ryan Tannehill and this Dolphins offense works, right? Man, I want to remember the offensive coordinator's name for the Dolphins. If you remember it, just say it out loud. Just say it out loud, okay? Maybe I'll hear it. Goodness. Either way. Oh, man. It's going to kill me, but it's okay. Whatever. The offense is, revolves around the idea of short passes, right? That's why I'm surprised they got rid of Jarvis Landry. But then again, Jarvis wanted to leave. He was going to leave after this season because even if they franchise tagged him, he would have been able. He was an unrestricted free agent, and they just had to get rid of him because he was going to leave, right? So the way I see it, the best possible option might actually end up being Danny Amendola, a guy that can play the slot, short receptions, catches here and there. I still like Kenny Stills. A lot of people are looking, Devontae Parker. No, stop with that Devontae Parker BS. I don't want to hear it. So, and maybe Mike Gesicki, the tight end. He looked good in the red zone. Anyway, we're moving on. Cardinals versus Saints, okay? Yes, the picture is Cardinals versus Chargers, but, I couldn't find a picture of Christian Kirk versus the Saints. I'm sorry, okay? I apologize in advance. But what did we see from this game? Bradford came out. He was 6 for 6. Josh Rosen came out, threw a touchdown, looked efficient, looked good, right? Again, I'm telling you, of all the rookie quarterback competitions, Josh Rosen has the hardest job, to win, right? Sam Bradford is a good quarterback, guys. Last season, yes, he only played one game, but in that game, he had 3 touchdowns, 350 passing yards. He was extremely efficient. He smacked the Saints, right? This game he came out, he kind of picked apart the Saints defense with that first team offense. David Johnson had a rushing touchdown. Christian Kirk looked good. I think as of right now, through his second preseason game, he has solidified himself to be that number 2 wide receiver within this offense, right? Right behind Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk is going to be that next option. And in your leagues, a lot of people who don't pay attention, don't watch my videos, they don't know about guys like Christian Kirk coming out of Texas A&M. They don't know that he has potential to be that number 2 wide receiver, and he's going to have value. He's going to have 800 receiving yards this season, right? Because who the heck are they going to throw the ball to other than that, right? David Johnson's going to catch a good amount of passes, but again, Christian Kirk, I think he solidified himself as that number 2 wide receiver on this offense. Other than that, the Saints, there was no Breeze, there was no Kamara. I didn't want to watch Mark Ingram run the ball. I'm not interested. Boom, we're moving on to the next. We're not wasting time. Okay, Jaguars versus Vikings. Now, this basically was the battle of who's the best defense in the NFL, because honestly, these are the two, in my opinion, the top 2 defenses when it comes to youth and just smacking people up on a weekly basis, right? The Jaguars and the Minnesota Vikings. So what did we see from this game? On the screen, it's T.J. Yeldon. T.J. Yeldon out of Alabama a couple years back is the backup to Leonard Fournette. He hasn't really been utilized these last couple seasons because of the fact that, again, he's not the starting running back, right? He's more of a receiving back for this offense with Corey Grant. But, man, did T.J. Yeldon play well? The only thing I'm here to point out with TJ Yeldon is that he is for sure going to be the handcuff to Fournette. Fournette has always had injuries throughout his college career and even last year in his NFL career, his rookie year. I would just, if you're a Fournette owner, if you play in a deep league where you can put people on your bench, like you have a 10, 12, slot bench, and you have Fournette, grab TJ Yeldon. Just be safe, because Chris Ivory came in last season when Fournette was hurt, had great production. Yeldon also had some good weeks out of the backfield catching on third downs. So he can have, a pretty efficient thing a year, depending on, hopefully Fournette doesn't get hurt. But if he does, Yeldon is the guy to go for, right? Also, the only other thing that pointed out, right, because what do I care about Blake Bortles, right? Like, he's going to come out, he's going to throw a bunch of balls to a slew of receivers, whether it be Keelan Cole, Dede Westbrook, Dante Moncrief, Marquise Lee, his tight ends, doesn't even matter. Safarian Jenkins and Niles Paul. He's going to throw it into the backfield. I don't care. I didn't really care about that, right? Kirk Cousins, okay, sure, you showed up a couple of drives, BS, right? Doesn't matter, okay? The only other thing that mattered was Dalvin Cook didn't play again. And Latavius Murray is probably the handcuff to Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook scares me a little bit. I don't know why we're not afraid of Dalvin Cook coming back and not being the same, right? Yes, he tore his ACL in week 4. I think it might have been even week 5 of last season. So he's had over a year or almost over a year, but just already 9 months to get healthy. But I'm a little afraid. I haven't seen him yet, and I want to. So hopefully next week we're ready and Dalvin Cook gets some reps. But otherwise, Latavius Murray is that cuff, okay? Just like TJ Yeldon is the cuff for Leonard Fournette. Okay, now real quick. This game, we're not going to even talk about it. All I'm going to say is boring. It literally was boring. Not a single starter from either team played, okay? So boom, we're gone. We're leaving, right? The only thing I would want to say to that is the Rams haven't started a single starter for the last 2 weeks. Next week, week 3 of the preseason, they will have their entire first team offense for sure. Okay, now, the Cowboys and the Bengals, okay? Dak Prescott came out. He looked good, right? There were a couple balls that sailed away from him. I don't know if that's just Dak just not being a pinpoint accurate quarterback, but there were a couple passes that really got away from him, like 6 yards above the guy's head, 6 yards ahead of the guy. And it just kind of scared me a little bit, right? Because one of those balls are going to be intercepted one of these days, right? And it's not going to look good. Zeke didn't play. Travis Frederick didn't play. He had a couple stingers these past couple weeks. They got to be, making sure that he doesn't get hurt. Zach Martin pulled on a power, and a outside linebacker, or I think it might have been a safety that ran up, threw his body at Zach Martin's knee. He's questionable. I'm just afraid now. If the offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys started getting knocked out, Zeke is kind of a question mark for me, right? I know Zeke is talented, but that offensive line has to be there, right? Frederick and Zach Martin are both Pro Bowl interior offensive linemen, center and guard. Perhaps even the best center and guard in the league, right? Respectively. So I'm just saying, just be careful, because I'm a little worried, just in case, right? Other than that, the Bengals, right? Joe Mixon, again, I don't like him. I've never been a fan of Joe Mixon. You'll never see him on one of my rosters. But to be honest, it's mainly because his offensive line doesn't do jack for him. I'm telling you, his offensive line needs to help him, right? They can't do anything. They can't move anywhere. Joe Mixon gets the ball. There's not a single hole. He has to either break it to the outside and bounce, which the defense is trying to do, right? They're filling gaps in order to make him bounce to the outside, to where the outside linebackers are just sitting there, right? I don't know. Joe Mixon's going to need some help this season. John Ross came in, 1 reception, 29 yards, big whoop, but he's going to be that number 2 receiver for this offense. I'm fairly certain of that. Okay, what are we seeing next? Okay, we have the San Francisco 49ers versus the Houston Texans. Okay, Jimmy Garoppolo. He looked good. He looked effective. Came out through a touchdown. Within a Shanahan offense, I think the 49ers could be a team that could potentially upset their league or their division, and they might win their league. There's a potential, okay? There is a potential. Mike Shanahan's offense, on a consistent basis, is going to score a lot of points. And if Jimmy Garoppolo's, healthy and he's comfortable within it, then get Marcus Goodwin ready. Dante Pettis, who I talked about in my rookie wide receivers and tight ends video, he looked good. Pierre Garçon did not play. Other than that, for the 49ers, the running back situation, man, it's a mess. Jarrett McKinnon, who's being ranked around the about 14th, 15th running back in PPR, and half-point PPR, sometimes even higher, he didn't play, right? Matt Breida, who's I've talked about as a sleeper, did not play. They had McNichols. They've brought in Alfred Morris. It's a mess. It's a mess. I'm just afraid of this backfield as of right now. If they keep bringing in more talent and one of these guys have a setback, we got problems straight up. So I'm just a little hesitant on that backfield, okay? Texans wise, right? Deshaun Watson looked good, came out, threw a touchdown, boom, went home, fell asleep. I don't know. That's pretty much it. It's just nothing else exciting. There was no DeAndre Hopkins. There was no big plays. There was no Deontay Foreman getting a bunch of carries. No, it was nothing like that, right? So nothing big news, nothing too serious out of that game. All right, again, so for the second week in a row, I'm talking about Peyton Barber. Okay, Peyton Barber. It was the Buccaneers versus the Titans. Who is the Mariota versus the Winston, right? And Jameis Winston, who were drafted number 1 and 2 a couple years back in the draft, right? So again, I'm talking about Peyton Barber, who I think Peyton Barber came out and he was given the carries as a number 1. Ronald Jones, had 4 carries the entire game. God, I think we're prematurely getting worried about this situation, but all signs point to Peyton Barber being that starting running back, which I don't like to hear because I like Ronald Jones. So Peyton Barber might just end up being that guy that starts week 1 and beyond. So, and especially if Peyton Barber isn't being drafted highly, he's not a household name, to be honest, right? Unless you're a Bucs fan. So just keep an eye out on him and just watch out. Other than that, for the Titans, Mariota came out. It was okay. No big deal. Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis didn't get much production. I think they're going to split carries. I think it's going to be a DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry kind of deal. And that scares me. So just be aware of that because I think Deion Lewis might have extra value because of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Taywan Taylor, wide receiver for the Titans, came out, 4 receptions, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Looked good. Is that a big deal? No, not really. Because at the end of the day, I think Corey Davis is still that number 1 guy. Delaney Walker is going to get his. Can Taylor win that number 2 spot? Potentially. Tajay Sharp is still there. They got Jennings there. There's always a chance. They got Rashard Matthews coming back from injury. I don't know. We'll have to just see. But the whole point is Peyton Barber, guys. He might have just won that, that spot in camp. It might be done. But then again, wherever you draft him, just understand that the first 3 weeks of the season, okay, you have to play against the Saints, you have to play against the Eagles, and you have to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay, with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center, okay? Just understand that there might be a chance that Ronald Jones has one big game of those 3, comes in, has a huge run, and everything switches. So if you're like me, go ahead and snag him and throw him on your bench, Ronald Jones, okay? So next, we're going to be talking about the Bears versus the Broncos, right? Who do you see on screen? It's Trey Burton, tight end for the Bears, brought in this past offseason from the Eagles, right? Championship Super Bowl winning Eagles, right? Trey Burton was the backup tight end, was used a lot when Zach Ertz was injured last season, right? So the big highlights, Trey Burton, number 1, right? A lot of people have slated him as a top 10 tight end. During this game, Adam Shaheen, the other tight end for the Bears, carted off the field. And especially in a Matt Nagy offense. Matt Nagy is now the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs last year. The way I see it, if you're the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, right, and you used to feed the ball to Travis, Kelce, maybe you want to start feeding the ball to Trey Burton. I think the number, as a top 10 tight end, that's 100% for sure, but he might even be better than that this coming season. Trubisky needs a number one guy, right? And it might end up being Trey Burton. So if you want to grab a guy that a lot of people don't have name value on, Trey Burton, boom, he can 100% be a top 6 tight end this coming season. Other than that, for the Bears, Jordan Howard came out, ran the ball. They haven't ran the ball with Tariq Cohen at all. And a lot of people, a lot of the beat reporters in the Chicago area are saying that Tariq Cohen is more of a slot receiver. He's being more his production is more coming from the slot position, wide receiver positions rather than out of the backfield. So that's something to look out for. Jordan Howard's in that RB, high end RB2 conversation. He might jump up. Other than that, Anthony Miller, rookie out of Memphis for the Bears. I think he's also solidified himself as the number 2 receiver in that offense. 100%. He's going to play the outside and he's going to be good. He might play a little bit of slot, but we'll see. For the Broncos, right? The Broncos really haven't shown much at all. Emmanuel Sanders played. That's fine. That's actually helpful. We know that he's healthy, right? Royce Freeman, boom, he won the job. Last week I said he won the job. This week I said he won the job. It's done. Royce Freeman is going to be that starting running back for this offense. I don't care what anybody says to me. Devontae Booker is not getting near the red zone touches at all, not even in the preseason. He's not going to get the ball at all, right? He might as well just cut Devontae Booker at this point. Royce Freeman, guys. Royce Freeman. Get the popcorn ready. He's going to have a great year. Okay, let's move on. All right, so there was one more game after this, but that is happening tonight at 5 o'clock. So I just thought, let's just make this video. We'll probably add that to next week's video. We're talking about the Seahawks versus the Chargers. What did we see? Rashad Penny, right? Rookie running back. He's injured. I think he broke his finger and he got like a concussion or something like that, right? He had 2 injuries at the same time, which is kind of crazy, right? He was out. Chris Carson on your screen looked great. Came in. I think he's going to be that number 1 running back week 1. Chris Carson, a lot of people, especially from his production last season, he wasn't great, but, we know that the Seahawks want to run the ball, right? And if he ends up being that number 1 running back the first couple weeks, you might be able to stash Rashad Penny on your bench and just wait. Otherwise, go ahead and pick up Chris Carson if you just want a guy that has, instant production and instant value. On the other side of the ball, Melvin Gordon looks like a stud. Last year in half-point PPR leagues, he was the number 5 running back. He gets it done everywhere, right? Running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield. He's an extremely talented running back. He's going to be a stud this year also, right? He's going to obviously be better than like a McCaffrey stud because, especially last year's production, being able to score 13-plus touchdowns, that's perfect. That's where you want him at, right? Other than that, we had Phillip Rivers come out and play a couple drives. He looked good. Again, I don't know what this tight end situation is looking like for the Chargers, but if there is no tight end, right, and they go and pick up some bum or as in Antonio Gates, he comes in and finally wants to play again. If that happens, I'm not even worried about that, to be honest. I think Mike Williams, the receiver that they drafted in the first round last season, Mike Williams out of Clemson, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be that big target for the red zone, right? This guy he's a bigger target. He's a 6'5", 215. He'll go up. He'll catch the ball. He proved it in this preseason game. He went up and caught a touchdown. Mike Williams might be that red zone tight end target that they're looking for, right? But he's a wide receiver, so he has the skills of a wide receiver. He's going to play on the outside across the field from Keenan Allen. Chargers offense looking good. Other than that, that's pretty much everything. That's the week 2 standouts and rundown. I want to thank everybody for watching. I appreciate the support. We're almost at 70 subs, so let's keep going, baby. We're going for that 100, the big 100. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll have a couple more videos this week. Last week, a little busy, but we're going to for sure, I think I might even record one later today. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later, and thank you for watching. And please comment. Do you think that Royce Freeman has won that job? Do you think Peyton Barber has won that job? Just let me know. Let me hear it, okay? Comment below. Let's talk about it, all right? Anyway, thank you for watching. See you guys later.